for his first trip to South Dakota since announcing that he was running for president.
Why would I come to a two-year college in the 5th biggest city in South Dakota?
We have some sad news to bring you at this noon hour.
This is a KELOLAND News special report. Well, we just received word minutes ago that
there's a massive building collapse in between the Eastwood Smoke Shop and what used to be Copper Lounge.
Dave Dedrick was 81.
Well, today we brought in his longtime colleague.
When we came back out, we went down to our house and it's gone. There's nothing left of it besides the cement blocks that it was sitting on.
I have a lot of guilt about how things happened and the choices I made.
One of those choices involved Minnesota Vikings running back Adrian Peterson.
At this hour, we are following breaking news out of Lennox, South Dakota, where there has been a shooting at Sioux Steel Plant.
He'd really have a base of vantage point that no one else would have, and so have him say something like that, it meant a lot to me.
The opioid epidemic has hit home in a tragic and devastating way for me personally. On May 16th, my 21-year-old daughter, Emily, died of an overdose.
Well, now that the storm center's gone, our studio is looking a little bare, but this is just the beginning, because starting Monday, we're going to get rid of all of this. We're going to start tearing it all down, including this news desk.
Live in high definition. KELOLAND News at 10.
South Dakota Highway Patrol Trooper Andrew Steen walked out of the hospital to head for home.
Our day has come through this journey for answers pertaining to our beloved sister Sherry and dear friend Pam.
South Dakota has a new governor, Kristi Noem, who today became the state's first female governor.
Inside the stories that affect you. This is Inside KELOLAND.
Thank you for joining us today. We have a special edition of Inside KELOLAND this week to remember the man who will forever be known as Captain 11.
Dave Dedrick passed away after a lengthy illness that had him hospitalized for the past few months. He was not only KELO TV's longtime weatherman, but also the fictional character who was beloved by children and given the power to control time.
First with the best in the upper Midwest, KELO TV Sioux Falls.
Dave Dedrick was the first person ever to appear on KELO TV as he signed the station on the air back in 1953.
I was so puffed up when I opened that microphone and said, you know, serving the mighty Sioux Empire, this is KELO TV. Channel 11, Sioux Falls. I knew I was the one. I had done it.
And in a Weekly Standard cover story that came out over the weekend, Thune told the reporter a campaign against Barack Obama is not out of the question.
He asked some very direct questions, and I would be less than honest if I said I hadn't been thinking about it, because of the amount of encouragement that I've received from people across South Dakota and people across this country.
I ultimately am not going to decide this. In City Council, you're not going to decide it either. The people of Sioux Falls will ultimately have the opportunity to decide whether they want an event center built for this great town.
Gronseth argues it will give people in South Dakota a better idea about what really happens in the courthouse.
Right now we have the perp walk, and that's all we have to show. If we're in a courtroom and we can hear the testimony, we can hear what's talked about.
The justices will consider today's testimony.
And what you see time and time again is that smoke-free laws either have a neutral economic impact or a positive impact on states' economies, and we expect the same to be true here in South Dakota when the smoke-free law goes into effect.
He moved into second place on the all-time wins list for a NCAA coach, surpassing legendary North Carolina coach Dean Smith.
From Northern State University in Aberdeen, South Dakota.
He would coach one more season before retiring in 2010 to focus on his health, basketball clinics, book tours, and delivering leadership and motivational speeches.
At times, Dakota Dunes still feels a bit like a ghost town, a quiet community ravaged by a river. Residents were told to leave their million-dollar homes as the Missouri River was rising, and rising fast.
When we were first told to evacuate,
and they told us to be prepared to be out for 2 months. We didn't think we'd be back in the house at all.
The golf course also received a lot of damage, especially on holes 17 and 18. I'm walking down the fairway right now of hole 18. As you can see, it's a little more than rough.
Part of the evidence he presented today was security video of the attempted escape. In this video, you can see Robert wearing Johnson's uniform and pushing a cart to the west gate of the prison. According to witnesses, inside the box on the cart is another inmate, Rodney Burgett. When Robert was confronted about not swiping his card at the gate, Robert and Burgett started attacking those officers. That's when they called for backup.
Code 3, Westgate. Code 3, Westgate.
In the video, you can see the officers come rushing to the gate to subdue the two inmates. The video also shows numerous corrections officials taking Robert and Burgett into custody. When officers realized that Robert was wearing Ron Johnson's uniform, they went looking for their co-worker. That's when they found him in the Pheasantland Industries building, full of blood and with shrink wrap around his head.
Videotape cassettes are going the way of the Walkman and the 8-track. The dawning of the digital age means videotapes are being terminated. And by the middle of next week, the KELOLAND newsroom will completely sever its ties to tape. The digital images taken by the cameras will put our stories into much sharper focus for viewers.
This desk has been here longer than me. In fact, I anchored my very first show here at KELO TV on this desk back in 1990.
While it's under construction, we'll be anchoring our newscast from this temporary set we've built in our basement.
Live in high definition. KELOLAND News at 10.
Good evening. Former South Dakota Governor and U.S. Representative Bill Janklow has terminal brain cancer and not much time to live.
Janklow made that stunning announcement today at his law office.
This is a special report from KELOLAND TV.
Good afternoon. We have some sad news to bring you at this noon hour. Former Governor and Congressman Bill Janklow has died. Bill Janklow was 72 years old. He died of brain cancer. Just a few weeks ago, he came out with the startling news that he was suffering from the disease and went public with it and told the entire viewers of KELOLAND all about what he was going through. We learned just a few days ago that he was in hospice care. We now have word that he has died. We leave you tonight with how the former governor and congressman would like to be remembered in his own words.
A lot of people have that kind of success very late in life. I had it early in life, and I get to spend the rest of my life remembering what it is that I did, remembering the friends that I made and the people that I met, remembering the decisions and the way we had to make decisions. I mean, I'd lie to you if I told you there was ever one day, you know, that I didn't like being governor. I loved it. I did love it. Am I going to miss it? You're darn right I'm going to miss it.
Good afternoon. This is a KELOLAND News special report, the funeral of George McGovern.
He may be best known as a U.S. Senator and Democratic presidential nominee, but as we've heard all week, McGovern is being remembered as so much more than that.
Russell Means was a leading advocate for Native American causes, confrontational right up until his final year.
You know, I resent that question.
Means was on the front lines of protests by the American Indian movement. He led the 1973 takeover of Wounded Knee, a standoff with the federal government that lasted 71 days. Movie audiences, unfamiliar with Means' political activism, came to know his work in films like The Last of the Mohicans and Pocahontas.
We are following some breaking news this morning. A reported pursuit in Sioux Falls, and witnesses say shots were fired. KELOLAND's Kelly Ozair is at a press conference now on this, and that's where we're going live.
This one is a very large-scale incident, and in this case, DCI is the lead agency, and so we're just assisting them.
Highway Patrol Trooper Andrew Steen is rushed to the hospital after being run over in the parking lot of the Bridges Strip Mall near 57th and Western Avenue. Authorities say it looks like the suspect, a 25-year-old woman, struck the trooper with the front of her car. In response, law enforcement opened fire on the suspect's car to try to stop her.
Trooper had gotten out of his car. He was then run over. We do know now that the suspect and the trooper are both in the hospital. The trooper is in critical but stable condition.
Authorities say Trooper Andrew Steen, who you see here in this video from 2008, is a 34 years old and an 8-year veteran with the Highway Patrol.
For more than 8 weeks, the hospital has been his second home. But today, as staff members at the Sanford USD Medical Center looked on and dozens of troopers stood by the doorway, South Dakota Highway Patrol Trooper Andrew Steen walked out of the hospital to head for home.
Everybody here that came to see me go home, I can't say enough.
Search crews discovered the body of 16-year-old Madison Wallace about 1 city block downriver from where she went in Thursday evening. Earlier in the day, firefighters turned their high-pressure hoses on the thick clouds of foam that covered the search area. Underneath the foam was a 2-foot-thick shelf of ice that proved to be one more barrier to overcome. A large crane maneuvered a wrecking ball into place, punching holes into the thick ice so divers could enter the freezing water. Fire rescue credits the clearing of the ice with helping them locate Wallace's body.
Your home for 60 years.
Many side streets in Sioux Falls look like mazes.
Fallen trees, down power lines, and ice are making getting around some neighborhoods difficult, and the storm isn't over yet. KELOLAND News has you covered from border to border.
Good evening. Sioux Falls declared an emergency, but it's not the only place in the state getting socked by this storm.
Unfortunately, it looks like things are only going to get worse before they get better. Snow is falling, and it is not going to stop for a while. Chief Meteorologist Jay Trobeck joins us now early with a look at the forecast. Jay?
That's right, Don. In fact, we do expect it to increase in intensity later on tonight.
2 hunters have stumbled across what may be the most telling and chilling piece of evidence in South Dakota's best-known cold case.
Back on May 29th, 1971, began a missing persons case.
Today, nearly 43 years later, the case is closed. South Dakota Attorney General Marty Jackley says Pam Jackson and Sherry Miller were killed in a car crash, though at this point, he admits no one is exactly sure what caused the crash. Here's why authorities don't think anyone killed or hurt them. Jackley says the girls' remains were found in the front of the vehicle, not in the trunk. He also says the car was in 3rd gear. The dashboard shows the lights were still on when the car disappeared, and the keys were still in the ignition, which was switched on. Investigators also found Miller's purse in the car.
Here is the driver's license.
In addition, they found a photo of Miller and 2 notes classmates had written her.
Joseph Patterson, who beat Ty, causing serious injuries to the young boy, who later died at the hospital. After a lengthy trial and claiming his innocence, Patterson was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole.
I have a lot of guilt about how things happened and the choices I made.
One of those choices involved Minnesota Vikings running back Adrian Peterson. Peterson is the biological father of Ty, but Dune says he's never been a part of their lives, and if you're looking for juicy stories, there are none here.
It doesn't upset me. I mean, it's just, there's no story to it.
With destroyed homes and businesses surrounding them, emergency responders gather at the center of Wessington Springs.
The law enforcement response was overwhelming, to be honest with you.
Multiple city, county, and state agencies are assisting in the effort. The tornado didn't claim lives, but it did claim plenty of property. Andrew Miller and Justine Hansen waited out the storm for 45 minutes at the courthouse, which is also used as a storm shelter.
When we came back out, we went down to our house and it's gone. There's nothing left of it besides the cement blocks that it was sitting on.
There's nothing left. I mean, we don't have any clothes besides clothes that are on our back. No money, no nothing, but we'll get things figured out. It'll be all okay.
It was clear even before people started filing out of the Denny Sanford Premier Center Friday night that the first major event was a major hit.
For a grand opening event, it could not have gone better for our first concert.
In November, authorities found Swiftbird dead in the stairwell of a downtown Sioux Falls parking lot.
I think she had a sweet, dear personality.
The Minnehaha County coroner says hypothermia played a role in Swiftbird's death.
She always had a little bit of comedy about her, quite a bit of humor. that would come through, even if things didn't seem to be all right. You know, there was always a humorous side to things.
In response, Lewis Drug and KELOLAND TV created Operation Keep KELOLAND Warm.
This is a special report from KELOLAND TV.
I'm Don Jorgensen. This is a KELOLAND News special report. At this hour, we are following breaking news out of Lennox, South Dakota, where there has been a shooting at Sioux Steel plant. Right now, we know that 2 people have been shot, but their conditions are unknown, and the suspect is still at large. The school was placed on lockdown, and there is another crime scene now south of town.
Shermazi decided it was time for a trim. The sound of his lawnmower seemed to drown out the noise from beyond his yard. He didn't know exactly what happened today until we told him.
I've got heart problems, but when Brady told me that, I just about had another one. Because I did not realize that took place in our city of Harrisburg. So that's mind-boggling.
However, it didn't take Ozzy long to think of a reason why someone would bring a gun into a school and shoot someone.
It's just a crazy world right now. Back in the 60s, you didn't have this. Everybody helped everybody.
Word of mouth spread quickly in Harrisburg. Even among the wreckage, Delmont Mayor May Ganeri finds progress everywhere.
I'm hearing some positive things that people want to rebuild today, so that's keeping the spirits up.
I am thrilled to be here. I have now been to all 50 states as president, and I was saving the best for last.
Teachers across the state are learning what their raises will be starting next school year. The legislature passed a sales tax increase that will kick in next month to collect more money to help boost teachers.
Last week's vote approving a payday loan cap in South Dakota.
That cap officially went into effect today, and some lenders are already making plans to shut their doors. KELOLAND's Perry Groten has been checking which businesses are still open and which are looking to get out. Perry?
Well, Sammy, on this first day of the interest rate cap, we stopped by payday lenders throughout Sioux Falls, from East 10th Street to Minnesota Avenue to 41st Street to West 12th Street. We found them all staffed with workers, but we also found one lending company with a lease sign going up and more likely to follow.
The President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
The crowd roared as Donald Trump made his entrance into his campaign's election night headquarters.
I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans.
This is a special report from KELOLAND TV.
Thanks for joining us. This is a KELOLAND News special report. Well, we just received word minutes ago that
there's a massive building collapse in between the Eastwood Smoke Shop and what used to be Copper Lounge here.
I can't remember a time period that we've had this kind of a catastrophic collapse in the city, at least not that I can remember anyway. Certainly not since I've been on the police department.
There are 2 trapped victims inside. They are speaking to one, and they don't know the status of the other one.
I just remember immediately popping out of my desk, running across my loft right to the window to see a huge smoke cloud and just going, oh my gosh, like this is not good.
And then a cloud of dust came across.
This is a live look. They're pulling the woman out from underneath the building collapse.
People have been just riveted by this entire situation, waiting to see someone pulled to safety, and now this young woman, this 22-year-old woman, has been pulled to safety.
One of the victims is now out, and you can see one of the firefighters just put his arms out. They've been working a long time.
They're shaking each other's hands. Now we don't know the extent or what, if any, injuries that she has, but
they're fist bumping there. It's a thank you to our first responders for working so hard to get this outcome, and we will continue to watch. There's still one more person in there.
We expect to get an update from officials from the city.
We just found the body now. Unfortunately, he did not survive.
Emily says she was still in bed that Friday morning on the 2nd floor with 2 of her dogs when disaster struck.
I had turned over, and by the time I turned over, I saw in the corner of my room the floor just starting to cave in. And it was only the floor. My walls were still intact at this point. The falling, honestly, went pretty fast. I didn't realize that I fell, what I've heard now is about 15 feet. And at that point, you know, you just I just heard everything coming on top of me.
Good evening. Tonight, a community in western KELOLAND is rallying around the survivors of a fire that killed 5 children. Early Saturday morning, fire crews were called to a home in Spearfish that was fully engulfed in flames when they arrived.
I'm here at Custer State Park. High winds have pushed the Legion Lake fire to spread over 35,000 acres. About 200 firefighters from local, state, and federal agencies have responded.
Jim Sedaris may be out of a job, but he's not out of the spotlight. After our story aired this week that investigators searched his home on South Magnolia, there have been dozens of comments on our website and Facebook page wanting to know why Sedaris is gone from his position as Sioux Falls Fire Chief.
Everybody wants it fast. They want it to be salacious. They want to make clickbait. They want to do all this stuff. I get it.
Former Sioux Falls Fire Chief Jim Sedaris is in the hot seat tonight, facing charges in an unthinkable crime. He's accused of possessing several images of child pornography. Authorities received a tip from Massachusetts State Police that linked Sedaris to emails containing images of girls as young as 8 and 10 years old being raped.
Hi, Brady. Hello, Mr. President. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very
Welcome
much.
to South Dakota.
Thank you very much. Great honor.
All right.
Good.
So we are a big ag state, and the farmers have said the last 4 years have been really tough. And this tariff war isn't helping many things from what they've told us. What can you do to make sure that farmers can keep farming so they can feed the world?
Well, the farmers are going to be in very good shape as soon as I finish the various deals. The farmers have been shut out from the EU, which is basically Europe. They've been shut out from Canada. As you know, Canada's charging tremendous tariffs, almost 300% on dairy products. They've been shut out to a large extent in China.
In recent years, we have brought you many news reports on the opioid crisis. But now, the opioid epidemic has hit home in a tragic and devastating way for me personally. On May 16th, my 21-year-old daughter, Emily, died of an overdose. Her official cause of death was fentanyl poisoning. The loss of a child, especially in this sudden and shocking way, has turned my world upside down. I never intended a member of my family to become part of the statistics you hear on the evening news. Nobody does. And there is no recovery for me or my family of the loss of my talented, smart, and beautiful daughter, Emily.
The number of Americans dying from drug overdoses is dramatically increasing. The CDC estimates overdoses killed more than 72,000 people last year. It has become the leading cause of death for Americans under the age of 50. We told you yesterday about news anchor Angela Kennecke of our CBS affiliate KELO in South Dakota. She has covered the overdose crisis for about 10 years now, but she lost her own daughter to the opioid epidemic just 4 months ago. Kennecke returned to work this week, and she says she felt an obligation to share her very personal story with her viewers. And I wonder, as a local news anchor, why you decided that you were going to share it so publicly. Was it a struggle for you to make this decision?
You know, I took a few months off just to kind of cope with what had happened to me.
And this crusade of Angela's is now a crusade of the stations, and it's going to be in our DNA for a long time.
Good evening. In just minutes, the polls will close across South Dakota.
We have a team of reporters working hard to bring you the results as soon as they start rolling in.
This has not been a focus of your campaign, but you have made history. You will be the first female governor of South Dakota. Even though that hasn't been your focus, how does that feel?
You know, I don't know if it's really hit me yet, but it's really special. I was concerned about letting people down in this race because I recognized that it would be significant if I were to win. And I'm just going to do my best to be the best example to all those little girls out there that really are recognizing that they can grow up and be anything that they want to be.
We're continuing to follow breaking news of a situation in southeast Sioux Falls. This is new video in from reporter Maxwell Hofer. Well, neighbors are telling us they witnessed a plane flying low and then heard a crash.
South Dakota has a new governor, Kristi Noem, who today became the state's first female governor. KELOLAND Capitol Bureau reporter Bob Mercer in Pia reports her election came 100 years and 1 day after South Dakota men gave women the right to vote statewide. Noem began the speech with a pledge.
I promise to govern in a way that will benefit all people of South Dakota.
This is a special report from KELOLAND TV.
Good afternoon. I'm Angela Kennecke. We are following breaking news on the south side of Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls Fire Rescue is using boats to rescue people from their homes. It's happening just off of Minnesota Avenue and West Lotta Street. This is just south of Interstate 229 and the Big Sioux River. And that is where we find KELOLAND's Dan Santella. Dan, what's going on there?
Well, Angela, I'm right now here in between Tomar Park and Yankton Trail Park. If you look behind me, we have a lake happening here. This is Lotta Avenue. You see different emergency responders here, Sioux Falls Police and Sioux Falls Fire. So I want to relay a couple conversations I just had on the phone. One was with a Sandy Frentz. She's with the health department with the city, but she's part of this incident command team at this scene right here. She says 80 addresses were hit by flooding here in this area. We have fire. We have Sioux Falls Fire Rescue on the scene. They're blocking roads and they're going door to door.
Get closer to that T area again. I mean, that's just keeps looking more and more interesting that this will probably have some strong wind move through it.
So if you are in southern Sioux Falls, I think at this point, take cover.
10-4, we're in the area. There's power out all over the place here. We'll make our way there.
It's going to be a little bit. We're getting swamped with calls right now.
Yeah, this is at Minnehaha Country Club. You can see the very heavy rainfall coming in.
For behavioral health, we're getting a call that they've been hit by a tornado and lost a roof. All units should go to the nearest fire station and take shelter.
We have a building collapse. The advanced auto parts store has got wall damage. We've got a building collapse.
10-4, I have another one too.
306, Kenton Cliff, there's stuff flying everywhere. I can't see anything.
Yeah, 10-4, clear the radio unless you've got emergency traffic. We have tornadoes touching down.
Get in the basement!
Let's try to send something out to my family. Go ahead and get into the basement. That's what we should be doing here right now, as this tornado warning is for the Sioux Falls area right now.
This is a special report from KELOLAND TV.
Good morning, I'm Matt Holson with the KELOLAND News Special Report.
And I'm Scott Muntz. The report came in at 11:41 of a tornado touchdown on the south side of Sioux Falls, leaving behind a long trail of damage.
Sioux Falls police are urging people to stay home and stay off the roads while they assess the damage.
Yeah, and you look at these pictures and what we're gathering this morning. This is by far and away the most significant severe weather damage in the city of Sioux Falls in my career here, for sure.
This happened when it's dark, and it's still dark, so there's still a lot that we don't know until the sun comes out.
I'm sure we're going to be discovering a whole lot more here as we go through the morning.
I'm on meth.
I'm on meth.
Less than a week after the $1.4 million ad campaign from South Dakota captured national attention, Governor Kristi Noem is responding to criticism.
Campaign came out just a little more than a week ago. When you were first going through the proposals that came in, what were you looking for?
Well, the one thing I'd always talked about when I was running for governor, and what I told the people of South Dakota, is that we would be wise with our money, we would have an open bid process, and that we would be as impactful as possible for their future.
Begin with developing news out of central South Dakota. A jailer at the Brule County Jail tells us that a plane has crashed south of Chamberlain in a cornfield. A spokesperson with the National Transportation Safety Board told us that there was a confirmed plane crash in South Dakota today.
On Monday, the final funerals for victims of the Chamberlain plane crash over the Thanksgiving weekend will be held in Idaho Falls.
Jim Hansen, Jake Hansen, and Houston Hansen are the last to be laid to rest out of the 9 family members who died in the crash. 3 survivors were hospitalized here in Sioux Falls.